gonna teach if you can teach yourself? Reflections. Who you gonna reach if you can reach yourself? Reflections. Who you gonna see if you can see yourself? Reflections. Who you gonna be if you can be yourself? Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of the Village Voices podcast. My name is DJ, and I'll be your host for this series. The Village Voices podcast is all about showcasing Caribbean and other nationals who have journeyed abroad either by traveling, migrating, or who just travel a lot, and to also hear some of the amazing stories of those people who would have literally left their home countries in the Caribbean to transform their lives, become something bigger than themselves. So, for this episode, I'm going to be taking you through a little bit of my journey moving from Trinidad. At this current point, I've been abroad now for about 7 years, and I've lived in 3 different countries, being Vietnam, Cambodia, and Thailand. So for episode 1, I would like to take you all the way back to when I would have first made my jump from Trinidad to Vietnam. And as the podcast moves along, I'll be sharing some more insights into all the other countries that I've moved to, as well as all the other countries that I've visited. So, just like every guest who will come on this show, I'd like to start from the beginning to give you a little bit of insight as to how I would have reached here. So I was born in Trinidad and Tobago. Grew up there for 25 years of my life before I would have moved abroad. And, I would have come from humble beginnings. Wasn't rich, wasn't poor, but I always knew from a very early age that if I wanted something, I had to go get it on my own. I'm one of 3 siblings, and I just knew from a very young age that I would have had to go out there, get it, when it comes to finances, when it comes to just doing the things and figuring out what exactly I want to do. So ever since I know myself, I always wanted to travel. I always wanted to live abroad. Always knew from a very young age that no matter what I do, travel is going to be a part of my life forever. I was fortunate enough to get a lot of travel experiences at a young age, traveling over to the States, England, Israel, Egypt, to name a few. And these experiences really showed me, what life was like out there, especially going over to the Middle East. So for my story, I will start around 2015. I think this is where the whole pivot in life would have taken place. In February 2015, I would have lost my dad very tragically and sudden. So being the oldest, a lot of the responsibility would have fallen on my shoulders. More or less, I'm named after my dad, so I specifically remember, especially during the funeral, when everyone was saying, "You're the man now, you're the man now." And it did have a lot of pressure that I wasn't anticipating. But you just had to fill in a role, and you had to be the man, you had to be the dad, you had to be that person who mom could depend on, who could just try to figure this out. But it wasn't an easy time at all. Life had to readjust in one of the most harshest of conditions. So around this time, I would have been in my first year at University of the West Indies in Trinidad and Tobago. And upon his death, I made a decision to take a semester off from school, and I went to work. I had to be able to take care of myself, pay a little bill or two with the farm, but I felt like a lot of the responsibilities and the pressure really fell on me. So my first job during that leave of absence was I was working in a warehouse, a place called Micon Marketing, just picking goods, pulling goods. And pretty soon, I think it was like a month or 2 after, there was an opening for a sales position for the Philip Morris brand, Marlboro. So I started this whole sales job. My job at that point in time was to support like 7 or 8 van men who would be in the area of the East, where they would be selling cigarettes and a bunch of other goods. But my job was specifically to educate the customers, the clients about Marlboro, which is not one of the more popular cigarettes in Trinidad, and also had to teach the sales guys how to actually sell the cigarettes. And at this time, life was okay. We were obviously still in mourning. We were trying our best. I was trying my best just to not feel this loss of a parent, because with a loss of a parent, you lose an income, and that put a lot of financial burden on my mom and our family. We literally saw our life go from being comfortable, being able to get by or not need for much, to the point where it actually became like, We live in month to month. Things was hard in the background, but we saw the differences in the household. Like the pantries got smaller, the kind of foods and things we would normally buy at the grocery, we had to like either substitute those goods or just not get it at all. So it was a trying time. I was trying to figure out what going on, trying to figure out what to do with my life. But at that point in time, I just made a decision to just go out and work. So after that 6 months of working, my mom came to me. It was approaching September, so the semester was restarting as well. My mom really urged me, she literally begged me to go back to university and finish what I started, which to this day, I'm so thankful that I did that. When you start making money, what's the need to go back to school? What's the need to finish what I started? But thankfully, I would have gone back to university and I had to do an extra 2 years, but I was able to graduate. So my life started to take a shift coming down to the end of my degree. When I was about to graduate, it was probably like a few weeks or a month before graduation. And I'm in my university now. It's nighttime. And, I was playing some cards, playing with some of my friends or whatever. And it reached to the point where it was time to go. I think I had to go pick up my sister or something because at this point, I's the driver. Nobody else in my family driving at that point. So it's me had to take everybody here, there, everywhere. I had to hold down the fort. I get to my car. I had this old 1998 Hyundai Accent. I'll never forget Betsy. And Betsy just didn't want to start. Betsy clicking and nothing happening. Betsy just not working. So in my head, I say, no gosh, all right. Let me find a solution for this. Now, out of nowhere, it had this one fella. I'll call him Porky. It had a fella called Porky. He was in the university. He wasn't like a close friend or a brethren per se. But he was somebody who would be around in our area playing cards and stuff like that. Now, Porky is of Indian descent, and this will make sense in the context as I move on with this story. So I there catching my ass trying to start this car, and Porky come outside. Me know what Porky do, but Porky lift up my hood. Porky play around with the things in the car and all them kind of thing. Engine. Me know what Porky do, but all I know is within 2 minutes of this man trying to fix my car, Betsy start. So I'm leaving Betsy to idle now, because I say, nah, I want to take this risk. Next thing I take this off and there's a mad scene. So Betsy there running while this man started to have a conversation with me. So out of nowhere, Porky just started telling me about his life. Now, I remember at some point in time, I was thinking during this conversation, I was saying, but maybe this person just really needs somebody to listen to because out of all the people you went into me who ain't really close to it. Porky started talking about the issues he having with his family. Porky started telling me about his best friend who he want to kill because his best friend take his girl. So, Porky just going on and on about all the little hardships of his life, which is cool. I was listening to it and I was just thinking, I just need to listen. There's no need for me to really input. I just had to listen to what Porky said. So the car probably idling now for about 30 minutes at this point. And out of nowhere, Porky just look at me and say, if my friends see me talking to you, they'll think something wrong with me. Now, I confused there because I just come out of nowhere. Porky telling me he business, like if he pre-saw somebody that he making a confession to. So I get real curious now. I was like, why? Because I just had a dry comment to say, like, why your friends gonna be surprised if they see you talking to me? Porky watch me in my face and Porky say, because I don't like nigger people. So I remember watching Porky now. I confused there because this man now tell me his whole life story. I know everything about Porky life. And then Porky dropped that bombshell. He's like, I don't like nigger people. So in my little processing, trying to think about what to respond or what to say. So I look at him confused. I was like, so why you talking to me? Porky look at me, boy. I'll never forget this. Porky said, nah, you not like the rest of them nigger people. I just watch Porky because at this point, me know what to say. It's like yin and yang. It didn't make no sense where we going from you wanting to kill your best friend because you take your girl to now telling me you don't like nigger people, but I not like the rest of them nigger people. So at that point, I just realized, it's just time for me to go now. Car good. I ready to press. Whoever was waiting on me probably been ready to press. So I say, you know what? I was like, you know what, bro? I think it's time for me to go. Because, this is me now literally choosing flight late evening on a Friday. Me trying to deal with all this mad scenes. So I say, yeah, Porky, I think it's time for me to go. And then Porky, he say, I will tell you something because I like you. And I'll always remember this day because I remember thinking in my head, I was like, bro, if you only say that word one more time, I know what's gonna happen, but it gonna not be this kind of casual conversation we having because, in all respects, I kept very calm because I was really confused. It was the confusion, I think, that really kept me calm. So I say, what, Porky? What you had to say? And this was the golden gem that Porky hit me. Porky say, you could build a tree 20 years ago, or you could build a tree now. And then Porky walk off. Now I talking to Porky now probably about, let's say 40 minutes, 45. Just went through a racist encounter in my own country. And I just sit down in that car, in my little Betsy, for the next maybe 10 minutes, only remembering the last thing Porky said to me. You could plant a tree 20 years ago, or you could plant a tree now. And I remember that night, it was around, probably be May 2017. And I remember just sitting down in that car, just thinking, it's time to plant my tree. And I went home. After that, whole thought process now was, how could I travel, live, and work abroad? How could I see this world? How could I be able to see what it have out there, see all the places I never see? Start this journey of traveling, and that is where the light bulb went off into my head. So I graduated, started working at a place called Pearl and Dean. I was into advertising. And yeah, life was just moving on. I was doing research, looking to see what I could do. So now I was thinking, all right, I should go do a master's, but do the master's maybe in Jamaica or somewhere abroad. So I applied for my master's outside of Trinidad and got accepted into Jamaica for their hospitality program. So at this point, I am preparing myself to go to Jamaica in September of the next year because I took that year off to work and continue working or whatever. So I was like, all right, I'll go work for a year. I'll go to Jamaica the next semester or the next academic year, which would have been in September. All right, so 2017 passed, we enter into 2018. Now we come into a specific time in 2018, which was April 2018. At this point, I went to my brethren cousin house party. I think she was having her birthday. So we in the party, chilling. It was very chill vibes and everybody liming, rocking back. And it had this one woman who was just sitting down there. But something about this woman was just glowing. And not in any kind of like sexual way, like ARL or this girl kind of thing. It was just this kind of energy. I don't know if all it could relate to this, but it just has some people, and when you see them, you just see a glow or a radiance or something along that line where you could just see something is not like the other in this scenario or wherever we are. So I start talking to her, and within our conversation, she starts telling me about her life, which means she's now been traveling, living abroad in Asia for the last 5 years, showing me pictures on her Instagram with like the little places that she's been to. And I get curious. I was like, so what is you doing? How you seen so much of this region? What is you really doing? And this is when she was telling me, that she teaches abroad. So I was like, teaching what? She's like, well, she teaches English in Asia and she's able to live there, travel. It was the first time I ever heard about these things, at least as a common knowledge in the Caribbean. This is not something that people actively tell you about, opportunities abroad, especially for those people who want to be teachers. I'm going to be real with all you. I never wanted to be no teacher, but what I wanted to do was travel. So we talk all night. I picked this woman's brain, asking her the hows, what to do. We exchanged contacts and, she just sent me some information. So I remember after that party, I went home and the only thing I could think about was, how am I going to reach to Asia? I had the need to go see Asia, especially places like Thailand, China back in them days, Vietnam, I didn't know about Cambodia. I did only know Thailand and China at that point, and Philippines because of Miss Universe. Philippines always have a top ranking bird in Miss Universe. So went home and started doing some research. It's April 2018. Started off doing some research, and I found this company, a TEFL company. A company that you pay them a one price, you go to a country for a month, you learn how to become a teacher to get what they call a TEFL certificate. It's called Teaching English as a Foreign Language certificate. Because apparently that was the prerequisites to be able to get a job back in them days in Asia. So I remember doing some research, and at this time it's two different things going on, because I have one friend on this side. He now about getting ready to go do his medical degree in Jamaica. So me and he talking, and I was like, yeah, bro, we go in Jamaica. And on the other side, I'm a brethren who cousin party we went to. He interested in it too. So we both doing research back and forth. So, we doing research. I go send it to he go do his research. He send it to me. And we were really considering doing it at that same time. So at that point in time, I was looking at China, because from the research, it was showing that China has one of the highest paying salaries for teaching. So it was also looking at Thailand, but Thailand wasn't the first on my list based on looking at the cost of living. So I was kind of going all in China. So at one point in time, my brethren sent me, shout out to Chuma, by the way. Chuma ended up sending me some information, and he was like, what about Vietnam? Check out Vietnam. He was like, it's low cost of living, but you could get high salaries. I was like, okay. So I remember I'm a very spontaneous person. I do things on the go, but I'm also well thought and planned, So at this point in time, I already know, all right, I kind of leaning towards moving abroad. I kind of leaning towards possibly trying out this teaching thing. Let me see what Vietnam has. So this is how I made my decision, literally, about which country I was going to choose to go do my TEFL course at. I went to Google Images. I typed in Vietnam. At this point, me know nothing about Vietnam. Don't ask me anything about Vietnam. I don't know. Type in Vietnam in the images tab, and that first page of images that come up when you do any Google search. I remember just seeing a bunch of different landscapes of all different sorts. And I watched that computer screen, and I said, I am going to Vietnam. That's how I made my Vietnam decision. So I think it's that night. I go to my mother's room. I was like, yo, mommy, I'm going to Vietnam. She's like, what? She's thinking I kicks in. She's like, what are you doing in Vietnam? You going to fight a war? Joking and thing. She's like, what are you going to do in Vietnam? So this is when I started telling her about, this is, teaching abroad. You go there for 1 month, you do a 4-week course, and then, they find jobs for you, and then you start working. So my mother at this point, she think I crazy because, I'm getting ready to go to Jamaica in September, or I'm supposed to go to Jamaica in September. But now you're telling me about this whole Vietnam thing. But to be very honest with you, at that point, my mind was made up. I was already seeing myself in Vietnam, not knowing what I'm seeing, but I was just using those images to actually guide my journey. So from there now, I went through the whole process of figuring out how to do this TEFL course. Shout out to TEFL Heaven. That was the company that I did my TEFL with. So during the sign-up process now, there's emails going back and forth between the company and I think around that point in time, it was about $1,800. This $1,800 package included being able to sign up for the course. You was getting a 1 month accommodation in a shared house. And afterwards, you were going to be able to get linked with jobs, because the TEFL school would start sending out your applications. Now remember, this was 2018, so things was different at this point in time. Days before COVID, days before everything. The world was different back in these days. So I remember sending emails back and forth to this guy, and one of the emails that he sent me, which I always said I'd keep forever to always look back on, he was saying, based on your country, Trinidad and Tobago, it might be a little hard for us to give you that promise of getting a job for you simply based on the country that you came from. Now, this was the first time I ever had any idea that your country could determine your outcome for anything. But back then, We ain't know what we don't know. So I'm very surprised. I'm like, well, why? And this is when he tells me, he was like, I'm going to be very honest with you, but apart from it being a bit difficult for you to get a work permit in Vietnam, they're still not as accepting to like black people or darker skin when it comes to the teaching industry. And he was saying, if you pay for this course, we cannot make any guarantees. So do you really want to proceed? Think about it, blah, blah. And I remember just emailing him back and I was like, bro, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the risk and we go see what happened. Because at this point, what I had to lose, I get a little 1 month vacation in Vietnam. And if things don't work out, I'll go figure it out. But in my mind, I'm moving. That is how I thinking at this point. I not thinking, but I going to come back. In my head, I don't see myself in Vietnam. So I tell him proceed. And he was like, all right, we sign you up. I did all the visa applications, got the visa. And yeah, once I did the visa, I think that is when my mother and them did really know for sure. They was like, wait, so you're really going? And I was like, well, yeah, let me do this. This is probably May, June, July. So remember, I had this conversation in April. So we're preparing at this point in time. When I knew that I was going to Vietnam, I switched jobs to be closer to home. Because I was like, you know what? I ain't had a commute to go up on this side because I was working in town. And I got through with the OJT program at that point, which is on-the-job training. For graduate students, they give you like stipend for 2 years for working and getting training or whatever. So I got one of that and I accepted it at my lot, which is right around or very close to where I live. So at this point now, I am preparing to go, and I told the university in Jamaica that I'm not coming, and then it was time to buy tickets. So again, there's certain things you never forget no matter how long or how much time has passed. At this point in time, I remember I bought a one-way ticket to Vietnam and it cost 672 USD one way. I'll never forget those three numbers, 672 to go to Vietnam one way. Now, this was a cheap flight. This was like a 3-day flight because, I went from Trinidad to the States to Hong Kong, and then Hong Kong to Vietnam. But we didn't get in there yet. But it was a cheap flight and it was probably taking about 2 days to get there. The TOEFL course was starting in November. So by about September, October now is like the final prep. So at this point in time, again, all my documents in order, which is something I'll have to go into deeper talks with you guys about after if it's something that you're interested in, because I made some mistakes which I had to pay for later down on the road, and I really don't want all you to make these mistakes. So during all this time now, I'm doing heavy research. I'm on YouTube. I'm looking at all these different things. And one of the reasons why I am doing this podcast to actually showcase Caribbean nationals or people or black people or people of color or anything living their lives abroad was when I was doing my research back then. Now this 2018, we didn't have no TikTok where you could see all this information. I don't even know if we had reels back then, so Instagram is Instagram, but it's not Instagram like it is today. In terms of short form videos, short form content, they didn't have no shorts. This wasn't the thing back then. And the only people who I would have seen making videos about living abroad or like teaching abroad was literally only white people. So a lot of the information that I would have received wasn't just from somebody with different color, but someone who's not from my region. I think I looked at a lot of people from the States who would, just be giving the ins and outs, apartment tours, cost of living, actual teaching in schools and adventuring all around. You got to see the whole picture of what Vietnam could potentially look like. So around this period in time, I would have thrown a barbecue because I was like, let me try to put some little extra money in my pocket because I don't know when I'm coming back, but all I know is I'm going. So we organized a barbecue, I believe, in August. I don't even remember what I did with that money. All I know is it went to good use. So yeah, leading up to this time now, then November the 9th came, and that was when I made my move to Vietnam. Started my journey. All the family came in, my brother, my sister, my mom, my neighbor, my girlfriend at the time. We're having this whole little kumbaya in the airport, this final goodbyes or whatever, taking pictures or whatever. And I went through those gates and I started my journey. I don't know if I leave on the 9th, but all I know is I arrived in Vietnam November the 9th, 2018. And this is where my journey abroad would have started. So my purpose for sharing this is not just to inspire all you, to let all you know what possible, but really to show you sometimes you just had to carve a lane for yourself. Whoever you believe in, I believe in God, so God sends these people or scenarios, things at certain times where it was just the light bulb effect from my racist encounter with Porky. Because one thing I always think about, even after years abroad, I said, had I given a reaction to Porky that night in 2017, I would have missed the lesson or the blessing that was supposed to come my way. Which was basically, I had to go through that 40-minute conversation of just turmoil, racism, to finally get the little gems. Sometimes you just get gems in the weirdest of ways. That was one of them. Meeting Shayna at that party that night. That was another blessing. And from there, I had to go carve my own lane. And here I am 7 years later in Thailand, where I currently reside, having lived in Cambodia, having lived in Vietnam. So as I move forward with this podcast, I'll be sharing more about my experience. Next up will be getting into Vietnam and how life was starting off at that point. And as we move forward, we're going to get through all the highs, all the lows, all the ups, all the downs, all the draws to how I would have ended up here in Chiang Mai, Thailand. So for anyone who is inspired to travel, who wants to hear and meet some amazing people from your region, who are doing these things out here, not just teaching, they're doing some magnificent things on all different spectrums, then this is where you need to be. This is where you're going to be hearing a lot of good stories. You're going to hear my story, some guests, and hopefully this will inspire you all. And hopefully you'll make your jump and carve your own lane. So this is episode 1 of Village Voices, and look out for more content. I'm going to be dropping so much gems for you guys, all for free, because I think at this point, 7 years later, I am really ready to share what I know and give the gems all for you to get your opportunities one day. So thanks for tuning in for episode 1. Episode 2 is going to be a banger, so just look out for that. Signing out for now, it's your boy DJ. Bless.
Who you gonna teach if you can teach yourself? Reflections. Who you gonna reach if you can reach yourself? Reflections. Who you gonna see if you can see yourself? Reflections. Who you gonna be if you can be yourself?